Welcome back. This is Rekha Kurup, and we are continuing the journey on planets, astrology, universe, life, purpose, mapping our life through astrology. And this is the fourth video in the series. And in the last video, in the third video, we looked at planets just in their isolation, what planets represent, and a glimpse into that because planets represent so much more. Yeah. And like, for example, I just wanted to give, I kind of briefly touched upon it, and it might not be like just that's how it is, but even just to see, um, you have the soul, say the soul, something in your soul rises a desire. Yeah. Like if you look at Ramayana, the entire Ramayana and the war came with Sita having this desire to have this deer, and how everything happened around that whole movement of that deer. But so how desire, so this desire, a desire coming up, yeah, so some karma getting activated, and what we make that mean, where is that desire coming from, and what's our story, our obsession, all that will again now connect to your moon as well. Yeah, your moon, your relationship with your mother, the early relationship. So there's the sun and then there's the moon. The moon could be so strong and consuming that it doesn't see anything else, wants that. Yeah. And if you have a Mars that is supportive of the moon, it's going to run, it's going to work. But if you don't have a strong Mercury, then the intelligence, Mercury and Jupiter are not working with it. It can't see anything else. Yeah. If it's not independent, if it doesn't have its own, and if the sun itself is not strong, yeah, if the sun is not strong, then that means this mind, this takes over. And there is the Mars, which would battle and destroy to go and get that. It will do whatever to go and get that deer. Or, in this case, whatever that desire was. Now, even when you see that, what do you see? And to be able to enjoy that, say even if it's something as simple as an apple, you just wake up with the desire to eat apple. Yeah. Now, your ability that day, yeah, to go and get that apple, that desire comes with Mars. Mars is what would support you and what you make it mean, your philosophy, your this, and your intelligence. It's okay. I have so many other things to do. Do I really need this apple? And I'm going to make all this journey. I have to go like 10 kilometers. Or is it just nearby? So I'm just giving this example. All this will determine how all these things work together. Yeah. And sometimes, you might have a fight for this apple at home, hurt people, say things. Well, then the Shani, the Saturn, will be like, okay, you want this apple? I will give it to you, the apple, and many things more with that apple. It's not like the Shani is as it's saying, that's what it comes. That's the desire, that's the moon. So there's something waiting for me to meet this. So I receive that. I wake up other faculties in this journey, like, oh, that apple was not that big deal. That desire pursued, it was not worth it. To make me realize that I am more important, my soul and who I am is more important than I thinking that this particular doing is going to give me something. So that realization to bring it, the Saturn is go. That's where it will get activated. So if that's the time for Saturn in your chart to be activated, it could be sometimes as dramatic as death, accident, disease. That's when it gets turned on, just in the direction based on some desire, some movement. Yeah. So these are ways in which, and then when you look at Rahu and Ketu, you'll know that shows this movement. Yeah. the head and the body, they are not working together. So the body is moved based on some comfort, and the head is not able to integrate both. Yeah. So we can start beginning to see this in our life. And as you start knowing astrology and you know your own positions of your planets and the relationships and the houses they sit and who is looking at you and who is in conflict with you, you can start seeing these dynamics play out. Yeah. And then it takes a conscious movement to work. And even that movement to make, again, it depends on the planet Mars, right? So if your Mars is not strong, then you really need practices to strengthen that in you. Yeah. So it's like there is free will, there's freedom, and yet there is not so much freedom. So there is freedom when you can really come into the understanding of your own life, your fate, how things are interconnected and happening, and coming back to your core. Whether you have something or you do not have something, whether you do something or you do not do something, the core of who you are, that is there with you. That's intact. That is not dependent on anything. So astrology keeps bringing this awareness. The planets keep bringing in the long term. That's what we were all here to. We are all here to fully embrace this life that has come to us and to flow in its powerful currents, steering the direction on the river of life. Okay, so now we learned about planets, and now let us look at the relationships of planets. And this again is not as black and white as it is made out to be. Okay, I feel everything in astrology, there's so many factors that we don't know. But when you start tapping into the body and the phenomenology, you might get a different insight, which is very much based on the here and now. So you may know all this, but what opens in the here and now might be something more deeper and expansive. So let's look at Sun. Sun, the king, the father of the house, the soul of the body. Whose company does the sun love? The sun loves the company of the moon, definitely. Now, but again, if the moon is sitting in a house that is the enemy of the sun, then the sun is not able to fully take in the moon, right? The sun loves the company of the moon, definitely, because the moon also cools the sun. There's some part of the masculine that is also calmed and held in the sun, and the moon receives strength from the sun, yeah, from sun's spine. When the spine of the sun, the standing, the light risingness of the sun, the moon draws strength because moon is forever waxing and changing. To someone stable and steady gives strength to the moon. For that, the sun has to be stable and steady. Now, if the sun is sitting in Saturn, house of Capricorn, it'll make the sun very uncomfortable. It's forever watching its back. It's forever uncomfortable. Then the moon doesn't feel the stability. Okay. So sun loves the company of the moon. It loves the company of the general because general is a right hand person of the sun. Yeah. The drop of threat, the Mars is ready to support the sun, to go for war, so it consults, so it is a very powerful influence. So they are forever. And the third is Jupiter. So these three, the sun loves the company, sun loves to meet each one of them individually. Sun behaves very differently with each one of them. Many times he might not love to meet all of them together because then there are things that he need not show to Mars and Jupiter, which the moon knows about the sun. The queen will know the king in a way that the Mars and Jupiter will never, ever know. Actually, queen will know all three in a way that they three will not know, ever show. They may show it to the queen. So the Mars and Jupiter. So sun really loves their company. Whose company does the sun? Who makes the sun uncomfortable? Venus. Yeah, after a certain age, the daughters can make, yeah, the princess. So that here I also mean sensuality and that kind of energy, with the sun makes it a little unstable. So sun loves its stability. Yeah, sun has to be able to stand. Anything that shakes that, then sun is not in its core. So Venus can shake the sun. So sun is a little uncomfortable. If sun and Venus are in the same house, then it is difficult for sun to have a relationship with the moon. It will affect the relationship with the moon. So sun and Venus in the, sun is uncomfortable with Venus. That means also the planets, also the signs that Venus rules, that is Libra and Taurus. Yeah. And Saturn. Saturn is the one who says, hey, emperor, you have no clothes on. Yeah. Your army, you like this general, but we don't like him. He's good for nothing. Yeah. Or you're not doing this well. So Saturn is the one who will always see the flaws, will always see what's not working and speak it and say it. So Sun feels uncomfortable with Saturn. Yeah, and Saturn in the Indian Vedic mythology, Sun and Saturn, Sun is Saturn, Saturn is Sun's son. So Saturn and Sun have father-child, father-son relationship, and this is a very debilitated relationship. Yeah. And literally, if you look in the solar system, Saturn is furthest away from the sun, and it is the coldest planet. It's really cold. Same with Pluto and Neptune, but Saturn, we don't look at Pluto and Neptune so much in the, but Saturn is really cold, and Saturn has no body. So if you fall on Saturn on top, you will going to fall all the way down and come out. It's a gaseous planet. Yeah, and it's very cool. And sun is really hot. So they're opposite in dimension. And you can look at the radiance of the sun and you look at Saturn. It's dark gray. Yeah, so they are in no way comfortable with each other. So sun is not comfortable with Saturn. And sun is a little uncomfortable with, it's not Rahu, actually, it's Ketu. Sun is uncomfortable with Ketu. So that's a typo. I'm going to change that. Yeah, so sun is not comfortable. And Ketu. Sun is not very comfortable with Ketu either, because Ketu is also connected to past. It's dark. It shows, it reveals much more than sun really wants to know. See, sun is all about glory and light, and it is not so much interested in shadows and darkness, and so it's yeah. So these are planets that kind of make the sun uncomfortable. Now let's look at the moon. Whose company does the moon love? So moon loves the company of the sun for sure. Moon loves the company of Mercury. Intelligence, because why is that? Because intelligence is very close to sun. It's the first planet of the sun. Prince, son, and so the mother-son relationship. The mothers always in families, if you look at, there are sons and daughters, the mothers have a soft corner for the son and the father has a soft corner for the daughter. But interestingly here, the Venus makes the son a little uncomfortable. Yeah. At a distance. So if you keep this, if this father and daughter can have a distance, then they can have a deep relationship. Yeah. But so Mercury and Moon have a good relationship. Mercury is also intelligence, is communication. So that supports Moon in her expression. That supports our mind, our psyche, intelligence, knowledge. Yeah, intelligence, not even knowledge. Knowledge is Jupiter. Intelligence. Intelligence really refines the mind. If there is no intelligence, the mind is all over the place. So intelligence gives some steadiness to the mind, just like sun gives some steadiness to the mind. The soul gives steadiness to the mind. The sun and the intelligence gives steadiness to the mind. Moon actually is neutral with everybody. Moon has no enemies. The only person the moon might be a little uncomfortable with is Venus. So the moon might be, it's because the moon, Venus also represents mistress. Yeah. A moon also represents a seductress. Not the moon, so Venus. Venus also represents seductress, mistress. So the moon, the queen, is a little uncomfortable. It's not an enemy, but uncomfortable. But sun will see the Saturn as enemy. Venus uncomfortable. Yeah. And now let's look at Mars, the general. Yeah, the one who is responsible for effort, protection, action. Whose company does Mars love? Mars loves the company of Moon. I can't say loves the company. I think Mars, something about the Moon soothes the Mars. Yeah, someone who is forever in battlefield, seeing death and debris and killing. When he comes to the moon, in the chambers of the queen, the aesthetics and the comfort of the mother, something about that, I'm sure, Mars, it soothes Mars. Sometimes moon and Mars might have some secret relationships. Yeah, you see that in stories. Yeah, the general and the queen have some silent secret affairs. Yeah, so the moon and the Mars, and so you can see where based on the position in the chart, this can get turned on. And of course, Mars loves the sun, and it's a different kind of a love from the moon. It's the king. You are answerable to your king. So this love is with respect. This is with a lot of, order. There's an order in this relationship. So it's a different relationship between the sun and the Mars, but this is also, there's not much choice here for Mars and sun. Yeah, so they work together. They have to work together. And the Mars might stay on, sun might change, right? The kingdoms might change, but sometimes the general remains. The generals have seen many kings. So there's something about Mars in that way. And then Jupiter. Mars also might consult with the Jupiter. So this is like that. They meet each other a lot. So these are the core planets which are connected to Dharma, Moksha. Dharma, Moksha planet. They are all Dharma, Moksha planets, all of them. Yeah? So you can see that. And then whose company, who is Mars uncomfortable with? Mars is uncomfortable with Mercury. Yeah, Mars teaches Mercury. Mercury is the prince. So they can't have this kind of relationship. So Mercury is always a student of Mars. Mercury learned from Mars. Like Arjuna and Dronacharya can't have that kind of cordial friend relationship. They can't be that comfortable. It's the guru. It's your teacher, the one you have learned from. So there's always this. You might also be on a little guard because you might think that your teacher is judging your behavior, looking at you. There is love here in that sense, but there is a little discomfort for Mercury, for Mars with Mercury, with the prince. He's the king going to be tomorrow. And now we come to Jupiter. So Jupiter is the Rajguru of our life, of our soul, of the country. In the home, Jupiter represents the children. The children are the Rajguru. Yeah, so children, the kids are the teachers. They come to teach you. So we shift our world for the teacher. We listen to the teacher and attune ourselves to the teacher's needs, and teachers ask and telling. So in the home, that is the children. Yeah, though it doesn't happen, children are having to fit into. That's why children's Jupiter gets debilitated, is what I feel, because the Jupiter is what, when we see the child and we are tuned with the child, the Jupiter of the child becomes strong. But again, it's based on the chart. If the child's Jupiter, where it sits, it could have a different effect. And if parents know that they can also start shifting. Yeah. And, for this to happen again, you will see that there are some movements in the planet that open that. In a way, if you see, where it gets really interesting. Is it the crow sits on the coconut tree and the coconut falls. Yeah. So this movement, is that synchronous or is that chance happening? Is there a cause and an effect, or things just happen when the time is right, when it's the time? Yeah. So Jupiter loves the company of, we saw that, Sun, Moon, and Mars. Jupiter loves them too. Yeah. And again, here, if you see Jupiter's relationship with the Sun, actually Jupiter is one planet, is where the Rajguru needs to have might love the company of these three, but he might have very similar relationships, because there's something about the teacher's dispassion that needs to show up here. Yeah. So the teacher always, that kind of Rajguru, the wise one, needs to maintain a distance, so that in that distance, it's like a therapist or a counselor has to really have a distance with the client, so that with the one who are consulting with Jupiter, so that the neutrality is what supports this relationship to blossom. So there is this, so Jupiter, though they love company of Jupiter, there is also a different kind of relationship here. And what makes Jupiter uncomfortable? Mercury. So both Jupiter and Mars are uncomfortable with Mercury. It's the prince. Because again, here Jupiter becomes a teacher. He's the one imparting to Mercury the wisdom of being a king. Yeah, so then there is, Mercury, when it becomes the sun, the prince becomes the father, then this changes. This relationship changes. Yeah. And Jupiter is also uncomfortable with Venus. Yeah, the sensuality and sensual aspect. Also, it becomes the guru, because the guru has to be a little neutral. And here, the prince and the Venus might take away that neutrality, and some love might come in, and that might affect the Jupiter's ability to be neutral. Yeah. So the Jupiter will maintain some distance from these two, the children. Yeah. And then comes Saturn. Yeah, one of the most important planet, my favorite planet. Saturn. Saturn really doesn't. You can't really love the company of Saturn, but Saturn is friendly with, is what I would say, with Rahu. Yeah, and that image is wrong. Friendly with Rahu. Actually, Saturn is not friendly with Rahu. Saturn is friendly with Ketu. So Saturn, if you see, Jupiter does not like Mercury and Venus, but Saturn loves them. Saturn is the protector of children in many ways. Saturn will, because Saturn loves, and Saturn is also the rule maker. Saturn is what really creates structure, because Saturn is connected to all those rule maker structure. So Saturn is also connected to Mercury and Venus. It has an eye, is friendly towards Mercury and Venus. So Mercury and Venus, when they come in touch with Saturn, it's a good thing. It brings more results. It gives the intelligence a sharpness. It gives the sensuality and aesthetics also a sharpness, a refinement. And then Saturn does not like Sun. Saturn and Sun have to have that kind of a relationship. They can't be in love with each other. They can't be friendly, because Saturn has to say bitter truths to the Sun, and the Sun has to sometimes take it, and it might not be able to do much with it. Yeah. And even with the Moon, Saturn is not very comfortable with the Moon. Saturn is not very comfortable with Mars either. Mars is the one. Saturn is not comfortable with Mars, but Saturn and Mars actually come from the same place. Yeah, so they both, but because Mars really, in Capricorn, Mars does get stronger. So in some ways, there is a comfort for Saturn and Mars. because they both understand the bitterness of life. They both see the harsh reality. They both see the harsh reality, but from two different point of views. So one soldier and activist, they have, and I mean, when I say activist, I'm talking about a very different way of activist. As many times I see today is a little different activist, but really revolutionary. Saturn is a revolutionary, and Mars is the general, the soldier, the battlefield, is the one who is in war. And they both have seen harsh realities, but they might have seen it very differently. And they might have met these harsh reality under different circumstances. Mars, harsh reality is very much governed by the sun. Yeah. But Saturn's harsh reality is cause of the sun, could be the cause of the sun. Yeah. So it is Mars listens to the sun, Saturn speaks out to the sun or stands up to the sun. Mars many times will not stand up to the sun. Mars follows orders and, yeah. So if Mars and Saturn come together in a chart, then Mars will start standing up to the sun and behave very differently. It's not a reliable general for the sun. He might behave and say truths which the sun might not want to hear. And that might impact the stability of a country or of a home. Yeah. So now if you look at, so that's what we have. And now if we go to Venus, what about Venus? So my Rahu Ketus are a little off, I'm seeing in the chart. I have to revisit it because my intelligence and what's showing up, they're clashing a little bit. So Venus, so what does Venus love? So Venus is very comfortable with Mercury, the prince and the princess. They have a playful relationship. They're comfortable. They complement each other. One is intelligence, one is aesthetics. So Prince also loves aesthetics, loves lovely things, beautiful things. And Venus loves intelligence and the charm of Mercury. Yeah. So Venus, they both complement each other. And of course, Venus, like Saturn, there's something about that young girl who sees also the harshness. As young women, we are drawn to this beaten down, harsh, mean, revolutionary. Yeah. So Saturn represents that. Yeah, that there's a draw of the princess towards the revolutionary. And so Saturn represents that, the one but that really, this relationship can be quite traumatic and painful. Yeah. And Venus also kind of loves Rahu, but the image of Rahu is not that. Rahu is actually bright sun. So my images are mixed up. Okay. And Venus is uncomfortable with sun, a little bit uncomfortable. And the moon, with the mother to Venus. The moon does not have that kind of relationship with the daughter and mother relationship. There's something about here that makes the daughter has an uncomfortable relationship with the moon, while the moon might not show it so much because moon has a neutral relationship with everyone else other than Sun, Mars, and Jupiter. But from the Venus side, there is a discomfort with the moon. Because many times mother is the rule enforcer. She is bigger image of what the daughter wants to be. And you can see moon is very comfortable with the sun. So the Venus and the sun getting close can cause some things here. And this has an impact. So this relation, there's some tension here. And Mercury, now we come to intelligence, the prince. Prince loves the company of the sun, the father. The soul loves the company of Venus, is uncomfortable with the moon. So both the son and the daughter, the prince and the princess, are uncomfortable with the moon. Okay. And now we also need to know, when do the planets get mature? So every planet gets mature at a certain age of our life. That means they start really giving their benefits. They start really giving us the fruits of what they represent. Yeah. So if you look at it, at 16 years of age, the Jupiter matures. So Jupiter is also for a woman, it represents the ability to fully have children. It also means the wisdom, yeah, the guide, the counseling, that part of that knowing. So it's not intelligence, it's the some aspect of knowing that really begins to mature. It's not like Jupiter matures. Jupiter awakens into maturity. So then the journey of Jupiter begins. So there might be at this age something that can get activated for a person. So the Jupiter in your chart, wherever it's sitting, there is a movement, something opens up there. And then at 22 years of age, Sun matures. So something about your soul, this could be 22, that around that age, there's a maturity of the Sun in your chart. And so the Sun, wherever it is sitting, it begins to kind of get activated. So you might already start seeing things connected to that in your chart, in the house, in the bhava, in the zodiac, beginning to take effect. So you can see, in this area or there, the sunlight shining. At 24 years of age is when the mind matures. And we know that today. The brain circuitries reach a stability at this age. So the brain, so the moon matures at 24 years of age. At 25 years of age is when the Venus matures. So after moon matures, then Venus matures. That means the reproductive system, the beauty, aesthetic system, they gain some maturity. So it's important that even for women, I feel like till 25 years of age, a woman a woman needs to not consider being in a long-term relationship till 25 years of age. Only after that, she needs to look at a really strong relationship. It's very important, not just for the woman, but for even culturally to support this to happen. Yeah. And 28 years is when Mars matures. So that valor, protector. And that's why they say that 28 years is the age for a man to seek a partner. So you can see that gap, 28 years for a man and 25 years for a woman is a great combination. Yeah. So there is some movement. Yeah. Here. And then 30 years. At 30 years, we will all experience our first Saturn return. So it's not Saturn maturity. Saturn doesn't mature till much later in our life, but our first Saturn return happens at 30. So Saturn will come back from where it began. So you will see something that was present when you were born show up again at 30 years of age. And then at 32 years, Mercury matures. So your intelligence will attain some maturity. Your ability to tap into your intelligence will mature at this age. Wherever Mercury is sitting in your chart, that part will gain some maturity. Your ability to see things will gain some maturity. At 36 years of age is when your Saturn matures. So if you can see, your Saturn is the last planet to mature. So we're not looking at Rahu Ketu yet. Actually, Ketu is the last Graha to mature in this cycle. But Saturn maturity begins at 36. So you will see some very dramatic movements open up at 32, 36 years of age in your life. Yeah. And then at 42 years of age is when Rahu matures. So wherever Rahu is, this is your destiny. Whatever you came here for, that kind of integration in that area, you will see some maturity happen, some reclamation happen. So we have to prepare ourselves for this. We get caught up in so many other things, in the social norms of things, right? We get caught up. We are not following this process. But what would it be to support a child to journey through this process instead of based on some worldly norms? Yeah. And for that, we have to really look at even countries' cultural timelines and astrology of countries and formation of countries and what that opens up, within which we are all somewhere getting hooked as well. Yeah. And then at 48 of 8 years is when Ketu matures. So Ketu is really the last planet to mature. By 48 years, all your houses where planets are sitting are activated. Yeah. And now you really is a time to really call in and see where you wish to go in your life. What is it that you wish to birth and stand and live? And you can start really charting your life. Because at 60, if you haven't learned your lesson at 30, in some ways you haven't started, 60 will really shake you up. Yeah, 60 will really be the second Saturn return. Saturn after 30 years is again coming back, and it's like, what? You are still there? Okay, let's start. Usually by the time people reach 60, there are many who have beginning to really start seeing their life very differently. It would happen. It is an impossibility not to happen. Okay, so that's about planets. Yeah. And now we are going, so we looked at now planets and their maturity and planets relationship. Yeah. And now we're going to look at zodiacs. Yeah. So there are 12 zodiacs. And here I'm specifically using the analogy of Simon Tchaikovsky. There are 12 zodiacs here. So, and most of us know the zodiacs. So we have Aries, which represents the ram. It's the beginning, the very first zodiac. It actually represents, so the analogy that I'm using here to what each of these zodiac signs look like is based on the analogy of Simon Tchaikovsky. And I would encourage you to look at his work. He makes it so easy to remember. Yeah. So it's a battlefield. So Aries is like a battlefield. So whatever planet will be here, it's like they're in battle. They're stuck in battle. So it's like that kind of, the energy of a battlefield. It's constantly going. People are at loggerheads with each other. There's foreigns, there's aggression, there is defensiveness. So Aries has that energy, the defense. So if you have planets in Aries, then this energy is there, this tension, you really have to work with it, this energy. Yeah. Because who is the Lord of Aries? It's Mars, who is the general of the battlefield. Yeah. And then we have Taurus. Taurus is the grounded, understanding, listening planet, yeah, whose lord is Venus. So there's a lot of aesthetics, beauty, sense of beauty, sensuality, grounded sensuality, not a airy sensuality of Libra, but a very grounded somatic body. You can know someone who are Taurus. They're very grounded. And it's like here, Taurus, the sign of Taurus represents a farmer's field. And it's not just any farmer's field, it's a farmer's field of flowers. Yeah, like imagine a poppy field, imagine those songs of Silsila films, yeah, and poppy tulips, poppies. There's something about those fields when you walk in, this fragrance, this beauty. So it's that, there's a gentleness, there's a softness, there's something about this. So Taurus is that kind. So planets sitting there, the effect is very different. Now, if you put a Mars in Taurus, Mars is going to be very uncomfortable in Taurus. Doesn't know what to do in a farmer's field. Mars gains strength when it's in the battlefield. Now, if you put a Mars there, not going to know. But if a Venus sits there, when a moon sits there, the moon likes her chamber, but a field might still make her a little uncomfortable, but still she might make garlands out of those flowers. Yeah. So moon would still know. Jupiter would love a farmer's field. A Saturn is going to be like, what's the use of these flowers? We need to grow rice. We need to do other things in this. What can we do? So Saturn might also not feel that comfortable here. Now, third is Gemini. Gemini, the sign of Gemini is like when you walk into a library or a bedroom. Both have very different energy, right? It is when you think of a library, it's full of books, and there's intelligence. So it's Mercury's place. Gemini is air and Mercury. And when you even go to a bedroom, there is a different energy to it. So it's this combination of these two. There's a restfulness in the bedroom. There is a mass coming off nest in the bedroom. There might even be books there. There might be, depending on everyone's bedroom is very different, right? And library. So that's Gemini. And then we have Cancer. So Cancer is literally a queen's chamber. So you can think of any queen from any story, any myths, fairy tales, and think of a queen's chamber. How does it look like? That's a queen's chamber. All, her mirrors and her essential oils and her tarot and also her swords and her costumes and all of that in her chambers. Her chambers is grand. It's not like the king. It's grand and, something very larger than life kind of. So that's Queen's Chamber. That's Cancer. It is where the moon sits. It's where the moon dwells. Yeah, it's waxing and waning. Yeah, showing all her faces and appearances. You go in there, you will meet. You don't know. There's a lot of moods there. Yeah, so Queen is in a good mood. Good time to go to the Queen's Chamber. Queen is not in a good mood. Yeah, you have to really be careful of who you meet there. So that's Cancer, Queen's Chamber. And then we have Leo. It's the castle and the throne room. Literally, Leo is Sun. Who is the Lord of Leo? Sun. So it's the souls. It's the throne. It's the castle and the throne where Sun is the Lord. So that's, imagine that, a throne room when you enter a castle. Yeah, it's not like the Queen's Chamber, right? It's different, but it is majestic. There's also fear. There's grandeur, but there's also fear. So there's a very different energy when you walk into a throne, there are rules. You wonder, what are the rules? Am I doing anything wrong? So there is that energy of, so that's the zodiac sign of Leo. Now, if Mars is here, Mars is going to feel very good. I am able to protect the king. Mars will feel good. But depending on who is here, the feeling might be very different. Yeah, the prince might feel uncomfortable here. The father, his courtroom, the daughter might also feel, different little. So just imagine the energy of everyone, the Raj Guru, Jupiter here in the throne room. If Jupiter has a good place, if he's in a good relationship, generally might be, but if not, Jupiter might feel uncomfortable in this castle because Jupiter also has a very strong sense of who he or she is. Yeah. And then we have Virgo. So Virgo is again the prince, Mercury. The lord of Virgo is Mercury. It's civilization because it's intelligence. So it's a civilized. So there's a nuanceness, there's refinement. Virgo is very refined, very nuanced in communication, very particular, very perfectionist. Yeah. Walks the talk. Virgo walks the talk. Yeah. What's inside is outside. Virgo is very, very particular about not just what is being done, how it is being done, who it is being done to, how you show up, very particular about duties, responsibilities. Yeah. So Mercury and this it's very civilized. Yeah, there's a civilizedness. It's a civilized, walking into a civilized city. Wow. Clean, the roads are all like going to Singapore. Singapore must definitely have some Virgo, some planet sitting, strong planet activating this sign. Because you look at Singapore, it's such a civilized city. They have nothing old. They constantly keep destroying old. So, like Saturn. Saturn is not going to be very comfortable in Singapore. Yeah. The sign like that, revolutionary, those, you hardly see that because it's kept. Yeah. And then we have Libra. Seventh is a Libra. And Libra here is not a courtroom like it's made out to be. In the Vedic astrology, Libra actually is literally the scales. So Libra is also the merchant's bazaar. So it's like walking into a bazaar, a Moroccan bazaar or an Indian bazaar, So it has all kinds of things being sold, and the sounds and voices, and people calling, screaming out prices and coming and get it from here. And there's a nuancement of speaking. If you have to sell things in the merchant's bazaar, you really need to know how to pitch things, how to sell things. It's the merchant's bazaar. So it's literally the image of walking into a merchant's bazaar. Who is not going to like being in a merchant's bazaar? The sun. Sun doesn't go and buy things with the merchant. There are people who buy things for the sun. So sun in a merchant's bazaar is not going to love it. So sun in Libra is not a comfortable place. Sun loves to be in Aries because Aries is where his general is. It's a house of his general. General is a lot. So sun loves being in Aries. Sun is uncomfortable in Libra. So when you know these energies, you can see how each planet is going to show up there. So Venus is going to love. It's Libra is Venus is also, it's Venus is the Lord. So Venus is going to love. Moon will also love Libra. Moon is going to like it. Mercury is going to like Libra. It's good at talking, intelligent. He's going to make a lot of money. He's going to sell many things. He's going to can buy things at very cheap. So it's a profit place for the Prince, Mercury. And now Scorpio. Scorpio, as you can see, the energy of Scorpio, the image of the Scorpio is like a dark cave or a deep, wide jungle. How do you feel walking into a dark cave? You really can't see. So anything dark and deep is Scorpio. Scorpio also represents death. So Scorpio, who the Lord of Scorpio is Mars. So Mars shows up here very differently than the Mars in the first house. Yeah, there's a freshness to the battle. It's the young Mars. By the time Mars comes to eighth, Mars has seen many battles, seen many deaths and goriness, and there's something deep, dark about Mars in the eighth house, the death house. It's the house of longevity. Yeah, so here that's the energy of Scorpio. The zodiac of Scorpio is just literally like walking into a dark cave or jungle. So if you have a planet sitting here, it's going to be, it's like sitting in a dark cave. Yeah. So it is good for occult kind of scenarios, So there is a lot of occult and death mysteries and shamanism. That kind of energy will get activated here. Like if you look at charts, like Sadhguru has a very strong planet sitting here in Scorpio. There are some right now are some very prominent people who have charts, who have planets, who are Scorpio signs, who begin here, whose ascendant is Scorpio with very strong planets like Mars sitting there, Moon and Mars sitting there. Moon also sitting in Scorpio is very powerful, very strong depth at the same time, where it could be moody. Imagine a dark moon there. So it's like there's a deep depth. Being in a jungle on a full moon is fine, but on a dark moon, it's not going to be very interesting. There'll be all kinds of wild animals out there. Yeah. So there's very interesting energy about Scorpio, very powerful. Yeah. And it's also one of the really challenging houses in our sign. So if you have planets sitting there, some heavy duty actions in the world are called for. Then we have Sagittarius, which is actually a mountain temple. So Sagittarius, whose house is Sagittarius? It is Jupiter. Yeah. So Jupiter. So this is the first time in the zodiac we are meeting a planet ruled by Jupiter. So all this maturity of all the other zodiac, and then comes Sagittarius. Yeah. The Sagittarius is actually a very wise, jovial, playful teacher. Really very interesting teacher. And it's like, and you have to climb to the teacher. So it's a mountain temple. If you think of a mountain temple like Vaishno Devi, we have so many in India, all our temples are on top of mountains. So they are Jupiter. They are Sagittarius. Yeah, with Jupiter, they are Jupiter's home. So when we go to these mountaintop temples, we are actually strengthening our Jupiter. So if your Jupiter is weak, go to temples on mountaintop to strengthen your Jupiter. Yeah, so Sagittarius, and go and meditate there. The Sagittarius is, it's like the mountaintop. So when you're walking, Your breath moves through so many cycles, and you might have visions, and it takes you to really see something more. At the last stretch, the mountain temple might be the toughest, right? And when you get there, so beautiful to be on top of a mountain temple. Now, for the first time, after we have met all the planets, we get to meet Saturn, Capricorn. Yeah, and here it's almost like you have gone through all kinds of things, right? Now you meet the slum. So Capricorn in Simon Chukovsky's analogy is like the slum. Yeah, it's like knowing all of this and then walking into Dharavi. That's where Saturn lives, in all the slums of the world, in the poorest of villages. That is the home of Saturn. Capricorn, Saturn is born and brought up in the slum. So that's why Saturn really knows the underdog. Saturn is biased towards the underdog. Saturn is with the revolutionary. We'll talk about things. What are you talking about? That silky garment, it's of no use. That's the Saturn. That's the material. You don't need that, right? Okay, leave that. You don't need that. So at some point in our life, we will all meet Saturn. We have to face Saturn and let go of. It's not let go. We need to gain maturity. So that's where it comes. That's Capricorn. So when a planet sits here, if it's not a planet who has a good relationship with Saturn, they are going to be in a soup sitting here. They're going to lose a sunset. Imagine a sun in the slum. Imagine the king in the slum. How is it going to be? It's going to really mature the king. Sometimes the king has to be. Like in Ashtavakra Gita, Ashtavakra has a dream which awakens him. Yeah, and the dream is about, actually the entire dream is about meeting Capricorn, meeting Saturn, being in the slum, being in extreme poverty, losing everything, being in famine, and then really questioning all that he has. Is this real or that is real? What's real? How do I live in this world? So Saturn awakened, and I'm curious if that happened at 48. Not 48, 36 or 56. 56 must be, because I don't know, maybe it's 36. I don't know. When Saturn, what did it happen at Saturn return, or does it happen when Saturn matured for not Ashtavakra, for Janaka, for King Janaka? Yeah. And then the Guru shows up. Yeah. And then 11th, we're still in Saturn. This is a Saturn, a little different Saturn. So it's an inventor's attic. So this is a Saturn who is inventing. You have seen an inventor's attic. It's a very weird place. There are all kinds of quirky things sitting there, weird things sitting there. You really don't, you might touch something and something else might open up, So he's really sitting there, finding solutions, making things. So that's Aquarius. That's the feel when the sign of Aquarius. You will understand when I'm saying it very differently here, because then we go into bhavas and then we can see the energy of the house. So if it's an Aquarius fourth house versus a Libra fourth house, or the Taurus fourth house, the energy shifts. And when a planet sits on it, that's the energy that planet also is sitting in. And is that comfortable? How does that planet be? Now, in an inventor's attic, how would these planets be? Yeah, Moon might enjoy actually an inventor's attic. Prince might also enjoy. Venus might enjoy an inventor's attic, but I doubt what would a Mars do there in an inventor's attic. And even actually Jupiter might also enjoy an inventor's attic. I wonder about the sun. Yeah, might make the sun a little uncomfortable, the inventor's attic. Now comes the last zodiac sign, which is Pisces. Pisces is an island. Yeah, it's like a desert. It's not really, we can call it a deserted island. It's an alone island. It's a solo. Pisces is a solo sign. It's like, imagine a deserted island. There might be a lot of beauty, but who sees that beauty? Nobody, literally. Unless someone comes on that island, you never know that the island was deserted, right? So that's how a planet sitting in Pisces might bring a lot of deserted island-like quality in that sign, in that power. And the planet sitting there might take on that power in that relationship, or in that quality, they might take on that power. So it's very interesting. So these are the signs. Yeah. And now I also have a quality for each sign. Like Aries is about courage. Battlefield, of course, that's the quality. Yeah. Aries will bring a lot of courage. Taurus is stability and groundedness. Gemini is connected to outgoing. Yeah. It's very outgoing. Personality. Cancer, loyal, very loyal. The queen is very loyal. That's why if you capture the queen, the kingdom is gone. Leo is all about confidence. Yeah. You may not know anything, but people just look at you. They may not even hear you. They just know that I will give everything to this person. That kind of confidence, the Leo sign is connected to. Virgo is about perfection. Libra is about balance. And I also feel Libra is about diplomacy, the ability to communicate. What do you call that? Transaction. So that there's something today we have called TA, transactional analysis. And I wonder how a Libra would be so good at transactional analysis. So this transactional quality is very good. In this particular sign is all about that. Scorpio, passion. There's a lot of passion. It's very interesting, right? Dark, cave, jungle, and passion. Because in the darkness is when passion can really exist. Light takes away passion. So in the darkness, there's something about passion and secrets they open up. Spontaneity. Sagittarius, quality of Sagittarius is spontaneity. So if your ascendant is Sagittarius, there's that quality of spontaneity. If something sits there, a planet sits there, just does not allow you to be spontaneous, it will show up in your personality. Then we have Capricorn is consistency. Capricorn is consistent. Yeah, one thing that you can be sure about. Capricorns are that they will be consistent. If it's bitterness, they're consistently bitter. They will not deviate from that role. Aquarius is philosophical. Yeah, they are philosophical. They are very checked out from the world, actually. Aquarius are very checked out. They're sitting somewhere here up in the air because they are an air sign. It's Saturn in the air sign, and Capricorn is earth sign. So here, so it's air and here. So it's either you're here, this. There, Aquarius will be talking about cosmic science and planets and traveling. Like you hear Elon Musk must have Aquarius there, definitely talking about living another planet, and that kind of conversation. It's you need an Aquarius to also go far off, even not just in the mind, but also then take us there. So Aquarius is a very powerful sign, very powerful zodiac sign, brings transformation, brings revolutions in technology and inventing and things like that. It's not discovery, inventor. And Pisces, they say Pisces is romantic, but I would also say devotion. There's something about devotion connected to this planet. It's not this romanticized. That's not Pisces. That might still be Libra. But in Pisces, it's not really that kind of romance. There's a deep maturity. There's a different quality in that. There's a lot of devotion, very devoted kind of love can mature or open up with Pisces. Yeah, so these are the zodiacs, and I think this is where I am going to pause for today. So I've introduced you the zodiacs and the relationship of planets with each other. And so we're going to pause here. And next we are going to In the next video, I'm going to talk about the relationship planets in zodiacs, what zodiacs strengthen planets, and where the planet really loses its strength or becomes uncomfortable. And then I will also introduce in the next video the bhavas. Finally, all this up in the air thing lands somewhere. So bhava is also our life, our body, our living embodiment, disembodiment, the drama of life. So we look at that in the next video. So enjoy, blessed be.